Hello and welcome to Filmi Ladies. We are Pitu and Beth, and today we have a very sparkly episode because we're going to talk about Amar Singh Chamkila. Unless you've been living under a rock, which you could be, I don't know. This is a Netflix movie that just dropped. It is directed by Imtiaz Ali. It has music by A R Rahman, and it is a biopic on the Punjabi singer Amar Singh Chamkila, whom I had not heard of prior to watching this movie.
Me
And
neither. Okay.
right. And it stars my absolute favorite current Indian singer, which is Diljit Dosanjh. He is the hero and the singer in this movie, and is just like a trifecta of three brilliant minds coming together.
Mm.
Parineeti Chopra is also in it, and I have enjoyed some of the stuff she's done before. So I feel like Beth and I are bursting with things to say. So I'm going to start by asking Beth two related questions. Number one, how do you feel about biopics in general? And how did you feel about this biopic specifically? I know you weren't familiar with Amar Singh Chamkila before watching the movie, neither was I. But apart from that, just like in general, what are your thoughts?
Uh, it's not a genre that I automatically gravitate towards, but I don't avoid it either. I'm sort of ambivalent, like I would approach it on a case by case basis, I would say. As someone whose profession slash almost vocation, I would call how I feel about my work, trying to be factual about people is really important to me.
Hmm.
And trying to be factual about bigger groups of people is also very important to me. So these are almost all flawed in some way for me because they're not, but obviously one movie can't represent a whole life anyway, no matter how factual
Mhm.
it was. So so I wrestle with a lot of this. And for this film in particular, because I had never even heard of this person, so much so that when you named the film the other day, I was like, what is she talking about? I have no idea. I hadn't heard of the film even. Um,
Right.
I I am such a blank slate. So
Mhm.
I have a lot of questions about what was true and not, and what is important about this person's life and not, but I wasn't really expecting the film to answer them because I didn't have anything to measure the film against, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So maybe this is the way I should go into biographical films, is kind of completely blank. And this one for me worked pretty well. I was very interested throughout. I was sort of intrigued by some of the way that different visuals worked, although I did not care for the little animations, which we could discuss further if we want to. But even for such a short life, I'm very curious about what was left out. I'm very curious about what was presented in this as true that we either don't know was true or wasn't true or whatever, especially when they start pairing in real documentary footage and images along with the narrative in the film. So that kind of muddies that a little bit, but I don't feel vested in it other than just as a sort of basic viewer because I don't have any knowledge. I want to interject quickly that where I live is about to experience a thunderstorm, I think. So please forgive any technical difficulties. We will do our best.
That actually sounds like a perfect setting. It's like we're literally talking about Amar Singh Chamkila, and it's going to be like dramatique. So I had never heard of this person either, but I always know about Diljit Dosanjh's goings on because I'm a super
Uh-huh.
fan. And so the minute I heard that he's coming out another, I am so excited because like I got to see him in Crew, and now I got to see him in this as well, and he really like shone in this movie for me.
Yeah.
I've liked him in every single film I've seen of his. I've seen some of his Punjabi films. I have not seen Suraj Pe Mangal Bhari, which I really want to. It's on 9,000 and it's a comedy. And I really loved him in this. I think he played the role incredibly well. I think Imtiaz Ali was very lucky to be able to have an actual singer
So
act
important.
in that role so
Yeah.
good. And I just thought that he shone in all of the emotional moments, but he also had like such a good sense of comic timing. I loved some of the scenes where the sort of fundamentalists are basically saying to him, like, your songs are too like racy or whatever. And he's like, yeah, yeah, I know. I could, like, can you be faster? Because
Yes.
like the
I
audience is
heard it.
waiting.
Yeah.
And they're like, you need to take this more seriously. And he's like, no, I know that. Like, just hurry along. Like, he just the fact that he kept a straight face through that, and just he was really good. um I am very pleased with Imtiaz Ali, I have to say. People keep saying that this is kind of like Parineeti Chopra's comeback or whatever, but I didn't know she'd gone anywhere to have come back.
Mm.
But I am pleased with Imtiaz Ali because his last movie outing, which is Jab Harry Met Sejal, made me want to bash my head against a wall because it was horrible and I wanted to like beat up everybody involved in it. Like I did not like Shah Rukh in it. Anushka was just insufferable. And I had a lot of irritation with Rockstar as well, especially because of the very choppy direction and because
Yeah.
of the casting of Nargis Pakri. And so I feel like Imtiaz Ali has redeemed himself in my eyes now, because there was a while where I was just like,
You forgot about Love Ajkal
ugh.
two or
Okay,
whatever it's called.
Imtiaz Ali owed us this because Love Ajkal 2 was also horrific. I only watched it because my friend forced me to, and I
Yeah.
immediately regretted it. It was so bad. So Imtiaz Ali is like a weird director for me in that I don't seek out his films, but I really do like Socha Na Tha, but it was like so old. And I
Yeah.
do enjoy Jab We Met. Like Jab We Met is probably my favorite Bebo movie. I love her in it. Um, but then other than that, I've never seen Tamasha, and I know that Tamasha has
Oh,
no, I've never seen it. I'm not sure
interesting.
why, but I feel like Tamasha is one of those films that gets talked about so much,
Yeah.
and it and maybe this is just me assuming this, but I feel like it's very polarizing. I know people who love Tamasha and I know people who despise it, and I don't quite know why that is, but
Mm.
I'll be able to decide once I watch it. But I've just never felt a desire to watch it, mostly because
Mm.
I don't like DP. I don't particularly, I'm not like a huge giant fan of Ranbir Kapoor anyway. So I'm like, and it's Imtiaz Ali, and I'm like, can I be bothered? Probably not.
Mm.
Um, I think for me to watch an Imtiaz Ali, I have to like the stars in it
Mm.
because I don't care for him as a director, especially with those three turkeys that he served us. Um, so to me, I mean, I only watched this because of Diljit Dosanjh. That's it. And
Mm.
but I was very pleased with the direction. I really like the acting. Actually, I love those animation figures and everything. That was kind of cool. And I loved how, I don't know if this is the right word, but the movie came across as very sort of like raw. Just in terms of how where it was set and how it was shot in these like small
Yeah,
villages.
there's nothing glamorous
There's
going on
nothing
here,
glamorous.
which I gather is quite, it's at least
Yeah.
fairly, if not totally accurate
Yeah. The
or
fashions,
resonant. Yeah.
like the acid wash jeans that he
Yeah.
starts wearing, and then those china silk, those absolutely hideous salwar kameezes that she wears with like the
Yeah.
very dated like hair and everything. um and that I love that song where all the women of like different ages and body types and everything, and they're all dancing, and it
That
was
was my
so
favorite part of the
amazing.
whole film.
It
Yeah,
was
I loved
so
that.
good, and they were
Yeah.
all being like raunchy and everything, and they were so cool.
That song came, it was fairly late in the film, but I had been sort of in the back 15 minutes or so leading up to that, I had been thinking about how segregated the world of the audiences seemed to be, because
Yes.
it was almost always only men on the ground, and then eventually you see the women standing up on the rooftops or whatever. But I
Hmm.
was really interested in that, and I thought, I wonder if they're going to address this, or if there's obviously people who know more about Punjabi culture in the 80s would know how to read this better than I.
Yeah.
Um, so
And
I
Punjabi
had
culture in villages. These are not
right,
big
right, right,
cities. Right.
right. So I had questions with that, and then to have that whole song where the women are erupting was really,
It's
really
so
cool.
good. That was like amazing. I mean, I don't think that apart from maybe something like Aya, I can't remember the last time I saw like women's sexuality just kind of being like celebrated and brought out into the
And in
open, and
such an
women of all ages.
extended, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it wasn't, when we watch Less Stories too, Nina
Mm,
Gupta has that, where she's the like sex advice grandma. Like this felt much
yeah.
more, mm,
Real.
yeah, real or grounded or something like that to me. Not to say there aren't grandmas like that, but this somehow worked a lot better for me in terms of, yeah,
Yeah.
women
And
of
that
different
scene was
ages.
really cool. Like, I'm not particularly familiar with like Punjabi folk music, but I've heard a
Mm.
little bit of it. And
Mhm.
especially with the older lady, like some people are talking about, oh, Chamkila's music is raunchy. And this older lady is like, yeah, but the songs we
Yeah.
sing beats where it's just women,
Yeah.
all of those
Yeah.
songs are raunchy. And there's that the subtitles, because I need subtitles to understand Punjabi. And the subtitles were like, what the snake nestles in the middle of the the legs or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh,
Ooh.
so they were like, he's
Yeah.
basically singing the same things we sing. He's just doing it out in the
In
open.
public. Yeah.
And I kind of like that juxtaposition of sort of that morality.
Hmm.
It's almost like they're saying like it's not wrong to say these things and it's not wrong to sing these things, but you gotta do it in a secluded, secretive
Mm.
way where you're almost ashamed of it. You can't
Mm.
say it out loud. Like that's the crime you're
Yeah.
committing,
Yeah.
right? And so that was very interesting to me. What did you think of like the direction? How do you feel about Imtiaz Ali, by the way, as a director?
Mixed.
Mm,
I did really love Tamasha when it came out, if I recall, but
okay.
I certainly I have not really revisited it. Um, and all the critiques I read of it, I'm like, yeah, I get that. So I kind of don't want to rewatch it. I've rewatched Jab We Met a few times, and for me, that
Hmm.
holds up fairly well.
Yeah.
Um, I really liked Love Ajkal at the time too, the first one, if I recall. But again,
Yes.
I've not revisited most of these. Also, really loved Highway. Um,
Mm,
I don't think I've seen Socha Na Tha, but I've seen almost all the others, I believe. And again, that's just I just happen not to have seen it. It's not on purpose. Um, so I am glad to see him doing something that isn't a love story. Primarily, I think that's nice to see
yeah.
him turn his hand to something else and to think about some other things. And maybe the love here is, fans for a singer or a population for a representative of that population in a way
Hmm.
and things like that. So I thought that was really interesting. Um, can I flip back real quickly to the acting?
Hmm.
Because I I thought Pariniti was pretty awful
Really?
because I found her just all but expressionless and kind of dead-eyed. Like there was a bit of a human overlaid, just a complete stone.
Mm,
And especially once they started interspersing the footage of the real Amarjot, I was like, because at first I thought, okay, maybe that was that woman's performance persona.
personality.
It's not. She's smiling
Right.
and lively, at least while performing. So I don't know what she was doing. And I have been thinking about it ever since I finished the movie. And I have no idea why she was doing that or why she was told to do that or whatever. And I found it very distracting whenever she was on screen. Like after when they first meet and she kind of, once her brother leaves the room and she kind of does the shy giggle like that,
Yeah.
that I was on board with. But then as she comes into her own musically, she just becomes utterly flat and
Mm.
dimensionless to me. And maybe she was doing something so subtle I missed it. Maybe it was something about the way she was speaking that as a non-native speaker, I can't follow. But I was distracted by her flatness. And I don't find her to be that way in the other films of hers.
Right.
I haven't seen all of her films. And she's obviously done a couple where she's kind of I apologize for these words. These are words we use about women only, like spunky live wire, that kind of thing.
Spitfire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like Hussy Tope Hussy is one of my very favorite romances, and I think she and Sid are both perfect in
Hmm.
it. But I didn't understand what she was doing here. And I saw a couple people on Twitter praising her and saying like this was the performance of a career. And I was like, what? What am I missing?
No,
I
I
found
would
her
not say
flat.
that.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, so I was also a little bit surprised, but because I know what you're saying about like the other performances. I do like her a lot in Hasi To Fasi. I
Mhm.
actually really like her in Meri Pyari Bindu,
Yeah.
which is a really good movie as well. I like her in it. I like Ashman Khurana in it. I
Mhm.
like the way her character is written. I like the fact that they don't get together at the
Yeah.
end. There's a I've always thought of Parineeti Chopra as someone who actually had a personality. Like
Oh
she's
yeah.
not a person who's vanilla off screen. Some
Nope.
people are just vanilla. Shraddha Kapoor, for
Hmm.
instance, Katrina Kaif, for instance. Parineeti is not that person. So I did feel that she was very kind of like dead-eyed and just kind of unidimensional in this movie. But I
Yeah.
don't know like why that was because if
Yeah.
you want a live wire, Parineeti is that person. So I have to wonder if it was just her phoning in the performance, or was it her not wanting to take away the limelight from Diljit Dosanjh, or was it Imtiaz Ali telling her to hone it down?
Yeah.
Or was the real Amarjot like that? Or I almost wonder, like, is it because like, when they're performing, especially, and they're on stage and she's singing these extremely risque lyrics, and
Mm-hmm.
she's surrounded by men, right? But she's this like
Mm-hmm.
auntie type of a person, and she's wearing these conservative
Mm-hmm.
salwar kameezes with the dupatta. So is that why she's just kind of like, okay, I gotta keep this in check, I gotta have a stony faced demeanor because I can't have these men thinking that they can like take a chance with me or whatever, like,
I wondered about
so
that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. If I'm feeling generous, I would say that maybe she was asked to portray it that way.
Yeah, I think she must have been. I think she's a strong enough performer that she can be directed and,
Yeah. Because
wouldn't.
we've seen her do roles like that in the past. So maybe she was
Mhm.
just told to play someone who's just sort of like, this is a weird word to use, but like meek. Because
Yeah, or protect, sort of self-defensive or
sheltered,
something.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or
sheltered.
like
She
someone
did seem very
who's
sheltered. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's basically her dad. When we
Yeah.
first meet them, it's her dad who's negotiating the terms of the contract with Diljit, not her. She's in a corner reading a book. And it's her
Hmm.
brother Pappu who has to be the chaperone who literally
Yeah.
sits between her and Chamkila in the
Yeah.
car and everywhere. So it's almost like, does she have a voice? And Chamkila says that too. Like, does she have a voice? Like, does she speak up? And they're like, oh, you can have her sing a song, but I feel like some people, maybe like Devi, for example, we've heard this about her, where she's like, when the camera was on, she was on, but when the camera was switched off, she was just like, the
Mm.
facade, the walls came down. So maybe is Amarjot as a character someone who, when
Yeah.
she's singing, she's on, but otherwise she lives in a patriarchal society where she does not get to have a voice.
That's pretty easy to imagine, and I'm happy to ascribe it
Right.
to that, except I do feel
Mm,
like Pariniti did not light up when performing the way the clips of Amarjot showed us that she
yeah.
did, at least sometimes. And I went to
Right.
YouTube and I watched a few more things. Uh, and she's not mimicking the performance. Now she's mimicking some of the gestures and stuff, but
Mm,
she's not mimicking the face and the sort of, even when you watch her do the claps, like she's not as into
yeah.
it as the real person was. So that, and we know she's a musician too, so it's not that, but
Yeah.
I was very confused by that, and to the extent that I was distracted at times, not for a long stretch at any one
Mhm.
point, because there's so much else going on and it's so
Right.
interesting, but I don't know how we could find this out, but I'm very interested in what our listeners have to say about her performance in particular.
She definitely seemed more low-key. You know who I actually thought was way more memorable than Parineeti Chopra, even though Parineeti Chopra was technically the heroine? The woman who played Sonia.
Yeah.
I thought she was hilarious.
Yes,
I
she
loved
was.
her, like, nakra at the beginning where she's like, "I'm not
Yeah,
gonna sing with some nobody. I'm gonna sing with
that was
Jidda when he
great.
comes." And then when they realize that the crowd is enjoying, she's like, "Okay, I guess I'll sing these." Like, at first she's like, "I don't sing these vulgar lyrics." And then when they
Nish
see that the audience is into it,
Yeah, her name is Nisha Bano, and it was
okay.
nice to, yeah, I didn't know anything about her either. She's also a singer in addition to being a actress, so that was fun to
Yeah.
see.
I
Yeah.
saw like like some interview clips of hers on Instagram, but the interviewer was asking her questions in Punjabi and she was responding in Punjabi, so there was only so
Mm,
much I could make out.
yeah.
But I thought she had like a really good uh personality, and like, the way that they've shown her interactions with her husband slash manager person.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious too. And then when she's pouting about the fact that she wanted to go to Canada and they won't take her to Canada. I thought she was hilarious.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me where I was like, could we have had her as Amarjot instead? Because I
Yeah.
saw way more spark in her.
Yeah.
And she just had a better screen presence, I thought, than Parineeti. I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, who is this woman? Because I want to watch
Mm-hmm.
her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm kind of on, I would say on the whole, I agree with you about Parineeti, but I'm also a little bit puzzled by it.
Very puzzled. And I'm also a
Yeah.
little bit disappointed because I have really liked her in the past, and I've not seen quite a few of her more recent things. She has a sports movie, I think, that I haven't seen yet
Oh,
and keep meaning to, on a plane, maybe.
right.
Uh, but I wanted something else from her in general, but also in the context of this film as I understood it.
Mm,
Mm. But what
yeah.
did you initially ask me and I went off on this other tangent? The
I had
music?
asked you
No,
how you felt about Imtiaz Ali,
we did that.
and then we both have mixed feelings about him. And then I think maybe I asked you about the acting, and then I don't think I actually asked you. I think you just like said you
I
wanted
just
to.
I thought everything else about this was great.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was so interesting. It was so I thought it was so beautifully grounded in real time and place without hammering home a lot of that. Like the fact that they put in a
Yeah.
few bits of what I assume was real news footage, maybe some of it
Mm-hmm.
reconstructed, but and there's at least one set of historical events I need to look up, others I'm familiar with, but um thinking about what's how does music fit into the context in which it is made and heard? Like that's important to think about. It's not, and that's what made this so much better than like the rise of the artist who is cut short, which is,
Yeah.
you know, like I know I'm pretty sure there's multiple Amy Winehouse documentaries, for example, and I have really enjoyed the one I saw. But like this almost had that kind of documentary feel because
Mm-hmm.
they did show you what this music means to people. And it was a little more interesting than like, oh, teenagers need a voice too, right? It's not
Yeah.
that. This is something else. And this is getting at, I think, is getting at class in a way that we don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily see a whole lot of. It's really focused on Punjabiness and not Punjabiness as filtered through Bollywood or through,
Mm-hmm.
Delhi and Mumbai. Um,
Yeah.
the fact that they're performing in, the day that they're shot, that doesn't seem to be a big town that they're in.
Yeah.
Also, can we just talk about how it opened with that? And because I didn't know anything, I was like,
I was shook. I
yeah,
was not
shook.
expecting that.
No,
I mean,
especially
I
like
knew
right
that,
here.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I'd seen enough clips and things like that on Insta where I knew that they were shot and everything, but I was assuming that that was gonna come much later. Like they were gonna show like the rise and the fall kind of, and then it ends at the and she just like it's just like this open where it's like a little field and she's in her car and she's wearing her turquoise blue suit and she's reading a book and she comes out of it and she has a smile on her face and then she just steps out of the car and I was like, okay, yeah. And then boom, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was shocked.
Yeah, I had no idea. That was really effective. And it made me, in a way, it kind of tells you if you don't already know, here's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But, but because the murder is unsolved, and at least as implied by the film, largely uninvestigated in any kind of formal way, I think
Almost
is,
implied, yeah, because at one point
yeah,
the inspector is basically like, he was just a singer. Why
we
do you
got to
want? And
move
also, he was a
on.
singer who sang bad songs. Like, why do you care?
Yeah.
So there
And
was a little bit of that.
it's easy to imagine that the police are in the pocket of one or other of these different groups that don't want him to
Yeah,
be singing. But, you're kind of freed up to focus on other things because you don't know why it ends, but you know how it ends.
yeah.
Also, I was so at the end when they told us a bit of the real history, which I was grateful for to know that not all the members of his band were able to find success continued, which
Hmm.
was also like that made me really sad because they're obviously a part of it and we didn't get much time with them. But
Yeah.
um yeah. Yeah, that was fascinating. Fascinating.
I love the bits where, like, the point at which it says to all the people, he's like, "मैं आज से धार्मिक गाने गाऊंगा. I'm gonna sing like religious songs from now." And they're like, "Are you nuts? Like, you
Yeah.
need to sit down."
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, seriously." And they're like, "No, you can't. Like, that makes no sense. Whatever. Like, the money is in those raunchy songs that you sing, not
Hmm.
in like turning over a new leaf or whatever." And then he does like turn over a new leaf purely for self-preservation reasons, and then those religious albums start becoming hits as well.
That was
And then
funny.
that was crazy. I was like, wow, like the man is just like, he just has the Midas
They
touch.
love
But
him.
I loved that scene where it's basically the fundamentalists, and they're in Canada, I assume, and they're basically just sitting there and they're saying to him like, you need to stop singing these songs and you need to start singing like decent songs and like religious songs, and don't think that just because you go back to India we're not going to be able to get you. We will get you, so you need to
That
stop.
was scary.
And he's so frustrated. He's like, "Oh, like, if you're gonna kill me, just kill me now, because like I'm
Hmm.
just so tired of this." And it was so infuriating to me to see like these three old theocratic men telling someone what to do, because I truly believe that the world has been and continues to be ruined by old religious men. Like, can you just, you have one foot in
100%.
the grave,
Yeah.
leave the rest of us alone. It's like
Right.
old men. It's just, just old men thinking that they have the right to tell people what they can do and what they can say. It's like, what do you even care?
Right.
Like, you're past the age where you can do fun things anyway. So let let the youth live, so it was
And
very
if there is a divine power, which I
infuriating.
personally do not believe there is, but if there is,
Yeah.
that divine power has a lot more important stuff to do than worry about what people are singing for the most part.
Yeah.
So, like,
Just the moralizing and the you can't do
yeah.
this and you can't do that. And but we see that in every aspect of
And it's
our life,
our,
everywhere in the world.
yeah,
And it's just
our
like,
role to
who gave
punish.
these old men this power?
Yeah.
And why do they have it? And why do they feel like, seriously, if I was an old man, which I'm not, but if I was, I would probably just be like hanging out in my garden with my cats
Yeah,
and
just
like
play checkers
drinking
at the
tea.
cafe. Come
Yeah,
out.
just have fun. Like,
Yeah.
just drink some coffee and hang out with your friends. Why you gotta, like, mess everything up? You're
Why you
gonna
gotta
die soon
threaten people?
anyway.
Yeah.
Ugh, it was so infuriating, but I loved that it took on these ultra religious people because they exist everywhere and they honestly are just like infuriating and
Yeah.
frustrating, won't let anyone live. So I like that.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was a ballsy move. And
Yeah.
I especially think it's ballsy for Diljit Dosanjh to do that because the man is a
Yeah.
superstar in Punjab and the man is known to be a very religious Sikh. It's the reason why,
Mm.
I mean, one of the reasons I personally really respect Diljit Dosanjh and have a lot of admiration for him is because he has spoken in multiple interviews about how he could have become a much bigger star in Punjabi cinema and probably could have made his Bollywood debut way earlier and become a star if he had only been willing to take his turban off and become clean shaven. Because
Oh,
yeah, you just can't. You
yeah.
can't be a hero if you look like that.
Yeah.
And he has spoken multiple times in interviews about how "Pag nahi utarunga," I won't remove my turban, and if
Mm-hmm.
that means I don't get the role as a hero, that's okay. But I
Mm.
admire him. Now I'm not Sikh, and I have no interest in whether people are turbaned or not or whatever.
Right.
But the fact that someone so ambitious and someone so talented and so gifted is willing to make that sacrifice and say,
Mm.
take me as I am
Yeah.
or not at all, I
Yeah.
just think that's admirable. But I also think it's shocking that someone as openly religious as Diljit Dosanjh is willing to say that, because a lot of times I feel like religious people just kind of like are afraid to take a stand, where
Mm.
they themselves may not be like crazy, right? But they're not willing to point out the craziness of their
Right.
fellow religious
Right.
people. So I love that this is a man who clearly his religion is very important to him. He has foregone many, many career
Mm.
opportunities despite that. And he kind of agreed to do this role that has these very direct scenes where it's basically like all of this moralizing and everything goes with it. And he's kind of saying,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, that's wrong. I just thought that was
Yeah.
ballsy. And it made me
Yeah.
respect him even more.
Yeah.
So I like that. But it was also infuriating to me.
Yeah.
What did you think about the way that they talk about how people moralize about like the raunchy lyrics and stuff like that, but these same people are actually listening to this stuff,
Yeah. I mean, same
behind
as it
closed
ever
doors?
was, right? Like
Yeah.
this is all too real in current politics and in various places. It's
Hmm.
all too real in history. Like it's just and again, I thought the film had a fairly, it's a direct touch, but it's a fairly light touch about some of these
Yeah.
issues. So they put it there. They had a few conversations about it, but they didn't do the thing where like, oh, these people who try to repress others are secretly going to sex workers and gambling and da da da. They
Right.
didn't lay it on thick. It's
Yeah.
pointed, but it's pretty simply left to be just about the music and the behavior around the music, which I liked.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, I thought this was this script is excellent and it was put
Yeah.
together so well. And I'm not knowledgeable about this kind of music. I've heard bits of it over the years, but I thought the weaving of the Punjabi style with some of what Rahman was doing and all was just, and like the moment that, yeah, I mean, it is really still shocking to me how you can tell a Rahman song.
Yes.
And
It's amazing.
I can't even put my finger on it despite having a, pretty solid musical education. Like it's just magical. And I really loved how these went together. And I loved the very playful Hindi words on the
Hmm.
screen, for example. And like, obviously I'm reading the English, but I still really liked the way that they made that accessible.
Yeah.
And how it was colorful and like kind of
Yeah.
playful and things like that. I just everything about this I thought, except for Paraniti,
Right.
was really, really great. And maybe that's one of the reasons I'm so puzzled by her, is that it was just such a contrast to everything else as far as I could tell. But um yeah, I think this is an excellent film. I think this would be interesting to anyone who likes stories about musicians, regardless of whether
Yeah.
you know any kind of Indian music, let alone this particular kind or not. I don't think you need to be particularly versed in 80s Indian history to get it. You get more if you are, but
Right.
I think, I think this would be, I would put this on my list of things I recommend to people who've never seen an
Yeah.
Indian film before, for example. Even though, and so obviously it has song and it has dance, but not song and dance.
Right.
Really, but it just tells you so much about these people, and it's the individuals and the groups, and I just thought it
Yeah.
was great.
I loved how they captured sort of like the gaiety that one associates with Punjab and like the giddiness. Like the camera angles were so good. Like you're almost inside the car with Chamkila as the
Yeah,
audience, and it goes, and
yeah,
there's these people that are hovering over the car. But
yeah.
frequently, when we see those scenes in movies, whether it's Western or Indian films, it's always like paparazzi, or it's,
Mm-hmm.
people who are like yelling at you, and it's scary. But here, it was just these smiling turbaned men who were like literally dancing along to the car. It was so sweet. It just
Yeah.
put like a big smile on my face. And that is such a classic Indian thing too, where it's like the people just get up and start dancing. I mean, we
And
do it in movie theaters.
I love that it got at some of that, but it didn't, at least to my eyes, did not go heavy into Punjabi stereotype
Right.
either. No one ran up to you and went, bale, 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 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like it was pretty,
I don't think I heard any balle balle in this.
right. So it seemed like thorough yet understated or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it was really, again, people who know more about Punjabi culture than we do should comment, but that was, um,
Yeah.
I thought that tracked really well.
I think also one of my big complaints with biopics in general, and particularly looking at horrible movies like Sanju, is the amount
Yeah,
of whitewashing that they do,
sure.
where they try to present this person as this absolute goody two shoes who has never done a bad thing in their life. And if they did a bad thing, it's because they were framed because, they're so, oh, so innocent.
Right.
Um, I was kind of shocked at that moment in Chumkila where, his first wedding, the news about his first wedding comes out, and he's so chill about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's probably Gurmel's brothers beating down the
So
door."
chill.
And I was like, "Whose brothers?" And then he's like, "Oh, my first wife." And everyone is shocked. And then when Pariniti gets mad at him and starts yelling at him and stuff, and he's like, "Well, what could I do? If I told you I was married, you wouldn't marry me. And I can't break up this duo. Like, I finally have a shot at this, success." It came across as so almost like sociopathic. It was like this dude will do anything to get ahead.
Yeah. What is your take, that he was still currently married? Or was
Yes.
he okay? So it's not like I got divorced, but her family is still
No.
mad about it. That's what I
And they
thought
had a very
too.
small baby too,
Yeah,
remember?
they
Like
sure
in this
did.
scene, I
Yeah,
mean, if you had that small a baby, and I'm sure you had this partnership with Amarjot for a while, then when was that baby conceived then? Like, I don't think
right.
they were living apart.
No, I
I
don't think
think
so
that
either.
they were actually like married. And he was
Yeah,
just like, well, I'm not going to give up this partnership. And her dad is not going to let her continue to work with me if we don't get married. So let's just get married. It was so calculated
yeah. And to
and
think that
so shrewd.
think he could get away with it, although he did.
He did, though. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like he did, and I just literally saw an interview of Gurmel Kaur, his first wife. Again, it was in Punjabi,
Mm,
so there was a lot I couldn't understand, so I had to read the comments to see what people were saying.
hmm.
And she talked about how they kind of like accepted Amarjot, and they continued to kind of like have good
Wow.
relations, and he kind of continued to support her. So it sounds like a very like
Wow.
Dharmendra situation where Prakash Kaur, his first wife, they never divorced, and she continues to say decent things about him. And his sons
But
continue to.
like in this one, nobody converted, and
No.
so the second
So
marriage is
technically, that
illegal,
marriage is
right?
illegal, which
Yeah.
is what they do say in the Panchayat, right? Like that's
Oh,
exactly what he
true. Yeah,
says.
that's
Like
true. That's
he
true.
says it's not just immoral, it's also illegal because
Yeah.
bigamy is illegal.
Yeah.
But he's just kind of like, and again, even over there, he's not arguing on that point. He's like, yeah, whatever. But again, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And he just like snows everyone with his stardom.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's very realistic also, because I
Mm.
feel like so many stars, whether it's Bollywood stars or Hollywood stars or wherever, whatever, there's so many people that kind of coast on the goodwill that they have and
Yeah.
coast on fandom to the point that they've done some very, very questionable, illegal, immoral things, and we give them a pass.
As I believe underscored by his repeated reference to Amitabh Bachchan.
Yes. But I did find that scene cute though, where they're in the
Oh,
car
it's
and
so
the
cute.
Canadian organizer or whoever is
Yeah.
like, "We're going to the same place where Amitabh Bachchan, was." And they were like, "Really? It's Amitabh Bachchan?" I keep forgetting like what a gigantic, huge, big mega star that man was at that time.
Yeah. And that he
But that was
compare
cool too.
someone else compares him to him, right? It's in the Panchayat, right? When he's like, don't worry, he's Amitabh
Yeah.
when he gets up on stage, whatever. But that
Yeah.
also is someone that for whom there is massive goodwill. Just so
Yeah, no, so many people. I mean, there's just like, you and I are working on the Kapoor series right now, and talk about a family that has coasted on goodwill. Also, tremendous amounts of talent and skill and hard work,
sure.
not denying that, but
And
definitely a
some goodwill.
family
Yeah.
that has very much coasted despite
Yeah.
all of the scandal. Um, this movie, there were some scenes, especially where there's all the moralizing that's going on and the hypocrisy. It reminded
Hmm.
me a lot of that big monologue that Vidya Balan had in The Dirty Picture,
Yeah.
um, where she talks about how the same people that are kind of like criticizing me and throwing stones at me are the same people who in the middle of the night watch my movies. So I like that bit too, where he didn't have quite so much of a monologue, but I like that sort of juxtaposition of you know people liking things and not being willing to accept it and just wanting to put on this like show. So that was
And
really cool.
you were reminding me that that's a biopic that I really, really
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, that's a
And
really
that
good one.
I'm there's another biopic of I cannot get my head around saying biopic. I can't do it. I don't know
What
why.
is is it biopic or
I
is it
don't I don't
biopic?
I don't know because you can sort of see it either way.
Biopic.
I'm not saying
Let's
that
just say biopic.
biopic,
Biopic.
iconic biopic,
So
um
iconic and
iconic.
so dramatic.
I really like the movie Shakila that came out a couple years ago, which I feel like I didn't hear anyone talk about.
I've not seen it.
It's Richa Chadha playing another of the South Indian
Okay.
softcore porn
Yeah.
kind of actors and whatever. And you'll never guess who plays the senior actor with whom she's often partnered, who is gross to her.
Give me a
It's someone,
clue.
it's someone we've discussed recently as being ubiquitous.
Rajesh Khanna? Devanand.
No, it's not, it's made only a couple years ago.
Oh. Oh, this guy, Elabat. No. Um,
You're almost
the
there.
name is on the tip of my tongue. Pankaj Tripathi.
Correct. It is
Yay!
Pankaj Tripathi. That is a film that I
I need a
really thought
prize.
was fascinating. I will send you a prize. That was super fascinating. And she's kind of like the I did research on this, which I've now forgotten, but she's like Silk Smitha, but Silk is the
Mm.
more established, kind of more
Ah,
popular
okay.
version. But this woman is still alive and has written an autobiography, and so that's
Oh,
another one that I found really, really interesting and knew diddly squat before I went in, which maybe
right.
helped a little bit. And I forget where I saw. I'm
Interesting.
sure I saw it on 9000, so it's out there, and I would definitely recommend
And Richa
people
Chadha
try
is a
Shakila.
wonderful actress, so
Yeah,
she probably did a great job.
I thought she did really well. And I'm trying to remember who else. They are the main two people in it. And she gets one of those speeches too about how hypocritical people are and things like that. So that's a good one. But just
I
trying
kind
to think of
of
these other biopics that I like.
Yeah.
And
I like
sometimes,
you. I tend also not to gravitate towards them, mostly because I just feel like there's so much whitewashing that happens that
yeah.
I roll my eyes so much that like it's just not entertaining to
Did
me
you watch
anymore.
MS Dhoni?
I did not, because I don't like cricket,
Yeah,
and I was just like,
I did
I like
watch it.
Sushant, but was it
Yeah, and
okay? How was it?
well, I really enjoyed it, but we're gonna have to put two disclaimers in here. One, I know absolutely nothing about cricket, really,
Same.
despite multiple attempts by people from different cricket playing cultures to teach me. Like I've had English people try to teach me, Australian people try to teach me, Indian people try to teach me. It's like um, but also that was the film that I got to see at Sunny's Super Sound
Oh yeah.
with the stars. So I was seated right behind behind Sushant when I watched that film. So that was hilarious to be
Nice.
like, that's him, that's him, that's him, that's
This
him.
is when Greta got stuck in the
Correct. This
bathroom.
is when Kriti Sanon
Kriti Sanon saved her.
saved our friend from being trapped in the loo. Yeah, or tried to. I I again, maybe blank slate's the way for me. I was quite interested in obviously I knew who Dhoni was in terms
Mm,
of or is in terms of being a major cricket star, but like beyond that, I really didn't know anything. So
yeah.
but it did strike me as a little hagiographical, maybe, but I don't know enough to know what was whitewashed or not. But I did enjoy it. But that maybe is the way. I also really liked, and this will shock many people, I think, Mary Comb. I thought
I
that
haven't
movie
seen
was
it.
really interesting, and I'm not a Priyanka fan particularly, but I thought she was very good in that. And
Okay.
that has for me has a lot of extra layers of I know very little about the northeast of India. I know very little about boxing. I know even less about women's boxing. I don't know anything about boxing in India. Like there's a lot going on in that one that's different. Obviously, whenever you bring up that movie, we have to note they really should have cast
Yeah. A
someone,
Northeastern actress for
a
sure.
Northeastern actress,
Yeah.
given their erasure in films. But
Hmm.
I did think Priyanka did a good job.
Okay.
Um, those are the major ones that come to mind for me as I think about Indian
Yeah.
biopics. Those are the ones
I really,
that
really
stand out.
like Bhumika. That
Sure.
is a
Yes. Yeah.
biopic
Mm-hmm.
by Sham Benegal,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen it's based on Hasa Wadkar, the Marathi actress, and of
Mm-hmm.
course Meeta does an amazing job. But like, it's such an old movie, but so
Yeah.
stunning, so good. Other than that, I don't really gravitate. I d- I don't think this well, does 83 count as a biopic because I thought it was lame.
I haven't seen it. I would assume that it
Okay,
counts. But like I haven't seen Nirja. I
I
haven't
haven't seen.
seen Aligarh still just because I figured it would be too
Mm-mm.
hard to watch, just like gutting to watch.
Yeah,
Um, I've seen one of the um Bhagat Singh films that I thought was pretty good. The Ajay Devgan one, I thought that was
I
pretty good.
haven't seen Sardar Udham, but multiple people have told me that it is phenomenal, and multiple people have said that Vicky Kaushal is just like
Oh,
excellent in it, which I don't doubt. I just think it's going to be too harrowing
yeah.
to watch, and I'm being a bit of a wuss about it. I'm actually
Yeah.
googling like biopic. Oh, I
Me
haven't seen
too.
Sam Bahadur, which again,
No.
okay. Google is ridiculous. I said top Bollywood biopic movies, and it's telling me Mr. India. What? Is Ahsoka biopic and Sikandar
That's
because we love them.
amazing. That is amazing. The one that I know Ek Dr. Ki Maut is a biopic, right? And that I have not seen but would
Yes,
like
that
to.
is brilliant. 12th Fail is a biopic I would highly
True,
recommend.
true.
Very, very good. Highly recommend that one. Tarla was cute. It was on Tarla Dalal and it had Huma
Hmm.
Qureshi. She was adorable in it. Um,
I have to Google because there's a Bengali one I want to recommend, but I have to find its name because I can't remember
oh,
it.
speaking of biopics, Padmavat, good God. Just Bhansali being
Not my
Bhansali and
favorite.
absolutely hideous. Would not recommend to anybody.
Okay,
Um,
here's one I do recommend. Kadambari, which is Konkana Sen Sharma as the sister-in-law of Tagore, who was in love with him, and he with her, and Parambrata Chatterjee plays Tagore. And
and they were pen pals too, right?
yes, I believe so. I
Okay.
really liked that film. I highly recommend that one.
Okay. I'll watch anything with Konkana in it, so sure.
If you can find it, watch it. It's great.
Anthusen would probably have it.
It
Um,
must do. I can't remember.
I was gonna say something and I completely forgot my train of thought. I was gonna ask you. something
I
about
remember
Chamkila.
Gandhi, my father, being pretty moving as well, but that's been a long time. And that's also someone I know nothing about, the son.
I haven't seen Gandhi, my father, but I did watch Making of the Mahatma, or whatever it was
Hmm,
called, back when I lived in India, and my mom and I had tickets, and we went inside at Eros in
nice.
Mumbai, and there were like
Oh,
4 people in the movie theater, including us.
wow.
Yeah, there were like 4 people. My mom was like, "Okay, great."
If you have
That was a
not,
good movie.
if you have not seen some of the pictures of the renovations they've been doing to that cinema, there's some great Mumbai Art Deco tweets. There's a Twitter account I
Mm.
fully recommend, and there's some beautiful pictures from what they're doing. I've never been inside that cinema, but maybe next
Oh,
time.
Eros, Sterling, and New Excelsior, these 3 theaters were basically my haunts because I went
Mm,
to college in Churchgate. So if you wanted to
mm,
watch Hollywood movies, you went to Sterling because they only showed English movies. If you
mm.
wanted to watch like Hindi or Hollywood, whatever, then you went to Eros. And if neither of them were playing the movie you wanted to watch, you went to New Excelsior. New Excelsior was also next to Vitals, which I loved. So if I wanted
Oh.
to like snack on things before and after, then my choice would be New Excelsior. So those 3 theaters have my heart. Um, I
Oh,
was
here's a
gonna say
movie no
something and I
one
forgot.
talks about.
Which
That's a
one?
biopic, Hawaii with Ayushmann.
I've not seen it. Who's it
That's
about?
an inventor apparently, and it's kind of inspired by the biography of let's see, Shivkar Bapuji Talpade.
Mm.
Um, resident of Bombay, is claimed to have constructed and flown an unmanned heavier than air aircraft in 1895.
Oh,
Contemporary accounts of the successful flight do not exist, and no reliable historical records document its existence, says Wikipedia. So again, kind of inspired by, I think, but it's got, mad inventor kind of vibes to it. That was kind
right.
of fun. But yeah,
You have
anyway,
seen Bhag Milkha, right? I've not seen it.
have
That's the one
I?
that has Farhan Akhtar in it, and he plays Milkha Singh, I believe.
Oh no, I have not.
Oh, okay. I'm not either.
Farhan as an actor is not something I'm going to gravitate to.
Right.
I don't think he's bad, but I prefer him as a director.
Yeah, no, he's a wonderful director. I don't particularly care for him as an actor, and I really don't like him as a singer. Why does he always
Amen.
sound like
I
he
don't
sounds like
know.
he has something stuck in his throat
Yeah, he's got
and
that
he's
very
trying to
raspy voice,
clear
and I
his
don't like it.
it's too raspy to the point that it's very irritating. Whereas like I love Rani Mukherjee's raspy voice. It's one of my
Hmm.
favorite things about her. And yet when he sings in his raspy voice, I'm like, no, please stop. But yeah.
We both need to watch Harish Chandrachi Factory to talk about, that
Oh
talks about the early
yeah.
films. I have meant to watch that and haven't done it, but
Yeah, we should do
oh,
we
and then
should
I
do an
watched
episode on that.
oh no. The Vidya Balan where she's the math tricks
Oh
lady.
yeah.
Why am I blanking on her name? That was,
Shakuntala Devi.
Shakuntala Devi. That was, and you liked Tarla, right?
I like Tarla, but I
So
haven't seen
there's some good
Shakuntala
ones out
Devi.
there.
Yeah, but I just in general I feel like biopics are like not the greatest. I
It's
also
hard. It's so hard. And like, well, just like I watched Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway, for example,
your
like that,
favorite,
ooh, that was really a stinker, even though it's about something so kind of explosive and complicated. But maybe that's the problem. You just can't whittle these things down, or maybe you need to focus on something, a very small particular aspect. I don't know.
right? Hmm. Did you one thing I have to give credit to A R Rahman is like he was saying, like his sound is so distinctive,
Mm,
but this soundtrack also I think can stand on its own as being very, very Punjabi, which his
sure.
music is not Punjabi. I mean, he is
Yeah.
literally a Tamilian man and his
Yeah.
music just sounds very Tamil. All his instruments that he uses are very Tamil.
Mm,
But the way he did this, and it's hysterical to me that my 2 favorite Punjabi soundtracks on film, I'm not talking about non-film
yeah.
albums, happen to be by 2 non-Punjabi composers. So there's A R Rahman who did Chamkila, and then there's also Sneha Kanwalkar who did Oi Lucky Lucky Oi. She's not Punjabi either. She's Marathi and she's born and
She's a
raised in Mumbai.
genius. I
But when you listen
love
to Oi
her.
Lucky, it completely sounds like it's like steeped in the sound of Delhi. So maybe it
Mm.
actually, maybe you need like non-Punjabis to make movies
Well, or
about
maybe
Punjab.
that's what translates to those of us who are not Punjabi either, right? Like
Right.
what Punjabi soundtracks are the favorite to Punjabis, that I do not know.
Right.
but no, I love Sneha Kanwalkar, and I think she's an
Yeah.
absolute genius.
She needs to do more music.
I
Like, why
know.
doesn't she's not prolific enough for me. I wish she would do more stuff. But I say that about all my favorite people where I'm like, do
Yeah,
more
sure,
stuff.
sure.
Completely ignoring the fact that they have a life of their own.
What?
Did you have any closing thoughts? Oh, I wanted to know, how do you feel about Rockstar? Because I have very mixed feelings about it. And that is also an Imtiaz Ali movie
I
about a
hate that
singer.
movie. I didn't even finish it. I was so angry at
You didn't
everything
finish
about it.
it?
I do think the music is spectacular, but I could not finish the film.
It
And
is
I
very
don't walk away from a lot of
infuriating.
films. I hate it.
It is very that, like, tortured artiste. My life is grief and
Not
difficult. It's
interested.
very that. And I'm glad that Chamkila did not end up going that route.
Right. There was
Although
no
in
like,
Chamkila's case, he actually could have gone down that route.
oh
I
yeah,
mean, given that you have people like gunning, literally, haha, pun intended, gunning for you, if
yeah.
you wanted to be morose and you wanted to cry all day about how difficult your life is, I feel like I would sympathize with you.
And he seemed like an adult, like he's young, but he is a grown up trying to be a grown up
Yeah.
and do grown and like yeah, the whiny man childness of Rockstar, and to a certain extent Rock On, at least the first one. I refuse to watch the second one because I hate the first one.
There's a second one?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
What in the Farha Noctar is this?
Exactly.
Which I
Avoid
know
your.
applies, which really applies to things that have been written in English and translated weirdly, but we'll use it more broadly. Yeah, no, that movie is not for me. Thank you.
Yeah, Rockstar was hard to get through. There were like a few moments here and there that I liked, but they were far and few between. The music truly is spectacular. Rockstar is one of those things where it's like, don't watch the movie, but do listen to the music on loop.
Hitia Karun is one of my, I don't know what it is about that song. I can listen to it 20 times in a row.
I
I
love
just
it.
love it.
It is so good. It is actually my favorite song from Rockstar. It is
Hmm.
so beautiful. Like, I love
Hmm.
the ting-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling,
That's a
ting-a-ling-a-ling.
Punjabi folk song, I think, too,
It
isn't
is,
it?
yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
like one of those really, really old ones.
Hmm.
But that one is really
It's
good.
so it's so charming.
You know, the point you made about how you felt like Chumkila was also taking on issues of like class. I like that scene where that journalist, who is clearly
Yeah.
like this elitist, like rich person, urban person, and she's basically like, talking to him, and he's like, "You really can't believe why my music would be popular, do you?" Um, I really enjoyed that exchange. It was so uncomfortable and awkward and
And I like that she
weird.
pushed him about the way the lyrics portray women. I think that
Yeah,
was, they both have some valid points, and that was
yeah,
interesting. Did I understand correctly that at the end she is one of the people like
yeah,
fighting to get more justice done for him?
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it was that
So she
same
kind of
face. It
came
was her.
around. Yeah.
Yeah. But I really like that bit, especially when he refuses to sit next to her and
Yeah.
she's like, "Why won't you sit next to me?" And he's like, "I've never seen a woman in pants before." And she's like, these are literally your lyrics. And she reads
Yeah.
them out. And she's like, "I needed her like a dough." And she's like, "And you won't sit next to me?" And he's like, "Well, because people around me talk like this. And so I'm used to it. But I've never seen a woman wearing a pant." And it was like mind-bogglingly amazing to me that the way that scene was constructed. And it's also like how sort of like precocious he is in so many ways, but
Hmm.
also how naive he is in so many ways.
Yeah. He's still a bit of a
He's like a country
rustic
bumpkin.
or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just felt like Diljit's acting in that scene was so good. Like,
Hmm.
he really like walked that fine line between being someone from a very small insular little world,
Yeah.
and now he's getting a little bit of exposure and he doesn't know how to handle it, and he doesn't know how to
Yeah.
talk, and some of his like
Yeah.
inferiority complexes coming through, and some of his awkwardness about a woman because it's weird. It's like he's clearly not her equal in terms of like class and background
Yeah.
and monetary like background and stuff like that, but he's way ahead of her in terms of like his fame and his stardom and
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
She's
his
basically a
success.
no-name journalist, but
Yeah.
he's like a star. So I love the juxtaposition of
Mm.
that. I thought that was really sweet. I also
Mhm.
like that one line in it, which made me really sad, where he basically says, I think, to her, like, if you're poor, you don't get to judge what's right or wrong, and you don't get to decide about what's appropriate and what isn't, because you want to succeed. And I just felt like that was heartbreaking, because we've read so many stories about people that desperately wanted to
Yeah.
claw up a ladder of success, and they have to make all of these compromises, and they don't have the luxury of like being like, well, this isn't appropriate or whatever.
Mm.
So that made me a little bit sad for him as well.
Yeah.
But I like that bit.
Yeah.
um what else? I think that was it.
Mhm.
Um, I just want to close out by saying that if people have not heard Diljit Dosanjh's music, they should, because he's amazing and I love him so much. I love all of his albums. But my absolute favorite Diljit Dosanjh song of all time, and it's literally one of my favorite songs of all time, is Raat Di Gedi, and I recommend it to every single person. Beth, I'm going to send you the link. You have to listen to it. It
Okay.
is so cool, and especially if you read the lyrics, it's
Mm.
about him wanting to elope with a girl, but there's a curfew situation happening in the city because there's
Mm.
like rioting going on. And the lyrics are so good. Like, he talks about bullet de lashkare, and it's almost like you're thinking about like the sparks from the bullet, and you think it's like this bullet, but it's not. He's talking about the bullet, the motorbike. And he talks about how, har chowk hatyare, like there's like guns, like arms and armaments at every single chalk in the
Mm.
city because there's
Mm.
riots happening. But at the same time, like, I want to meet my lover, and he talks about Raat Di Gedi, like the last train of the night. I love this song so much. I will send it to you. It has a
Good.
little bit of this like Chamkila vibe, or
Mm.
this whole like vibe of like love and longing at a time of like intense danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
We'll
very
put it
dramatique.
we'll put it in the notes of this episode on
Yes,
YouTube so people
everyone
can
must listen to it.
listen to it.
Um, okay, so I think that's it for this
Mhm.
episode. Aren't you happy I made you watch this movie?
Yeah, I really am. I really am. It was great.
Yay! Watch. Next, I'll recommend something and you're going to hate it, and then you're going to yell at me.
But most of your recommendations are bang on, so
Well,
I'm
remember when
I'm
I told you to
confident.
watch Beta and you were so grumpy about it?
But I'm so glad I saw it. You know what I mean?
Okay, thank God.
Yeah. Nothing's been a waste of time.
Okay, perfect. All right, so that concludes this episode of Filmy Ladies. We hope you had a chamkila time, and let us know what you thought about the film. If you haven't seen it, you really should. It's on Netflix. Tell us what you think about Imtiaz Ali as a director. Do you like
Mhm.
him? Do you dislike him? Or are you kind of on the fence like me? What do you think of Diljit Dosanjh? Are you here for Diljit Dosanjh's superstardom? Because I am, and I want him to take over. How do you feel about Pariniti Chopra? And do you think that her underwhelming acting was her fault or Imtiaz Ali's fault? Or does he just not know how to direct women? I mean, this is the person who cast Nargis Fakri in Rockstar, so maybe he doesn't know how to
Maybe he
direct women.
doesn't.
I don't know.
Interesting.
Um,
Except Karina was so good in Job We Met,
but
so
it's Karina. Can anyone tell Karina what to do?
probably not.
I don't think anyone can tell Karina
What would
what to
Bebo
do or what
do?
not to do.
Whatever she wants.
Bebo does whatever she wants. Yeah. Bebo is the true poo. Okay. Thank you for watching this episode, and we will see you next week with another fun episode of Filmy Ladies. Bye.